Welcome to the Reboot Chronicles, connecting you to the world's top leaders and CEOs rebooting their organizations and themselves with revealing stories to help you prosper in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, and as a serial CEO who's led dozens of companies that created thousands of jobs and billions in revenue, my passion is uncovering powerful lessons that can inspire you to reboot your organization, your career, and your life. Listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com. I'd like to welcome Sangeet Choudary to the Reboot Chronicles, best-selling author and founder of Platformation Labs. Sangeet is known for his groundbreaking work on platform economics, network effects, and business model design, among other things. An advisor to the top 50 Fortune 500, Sangeet is a scholar at Dartmouth, a fellow of UC Berkley, and holds key advisory roles in the Indian government, World Economic Forum, Standard Bank, ING Bank, and GPA, the largest food retailer in Latin America. His latest book, Reshuffle, is a winner. Who Wins When AI Restacks? It explores what I write about a lot in Forbes, which is how AI is transforming knowledge economies, shifting enterprise to AI tools, and fundamentally altering the workflows and organizational power dynamics. We'll get into that. Good to see you, Sangeet.
Thank you, Dean. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I wanted you on for two reasons. They're both, one's funny, one's not, but the main reason is most people don't have long, complex LinkedIn profiles like I do with 8 jobs that are currently, and you do. It took me a cup of coffee to get through yours about a month ago, and I always advise my Kellogg students, you need to learn the power of and. You don't just need to have your McKinsey job. You need to be doing that and 3 other things at the same time. So now, years later, I guess that's a normal thing. But the real reason was, when I do reboots and help companies, and when I used to do it as a serial CEO, I would focus on people, platform, and passion. And platform, to me, still is the most important thing. So that's the real reason. But before we jump into like tech and AI and all the normal stuff, why is platform so important now for the back half of this decade?
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic because we're with the rise of the internet and particularly with the rise of smartphone connectivity and subsequently with the improvement in data processing technologies, we now live in a world where we have connected markets of activity. So we have producers and consumers from around the world connecting constantly onto the internet. Consumers are constantly connected to businesses. Businesses are constantly connected with each other. So the way interactions happen in these markets is fundamentally different from how it used to happen in the industrial economy, where you had specific points of production, specific points of retail and sales, specific points of media and influence. What platforms do is they make sense of these connections. Platforms essentially create an organizing mechanism for any network market of activity. So a simple way to think about it is, of course, to think about Facebook as a platform for connecting people together, or Amazon as a platform for connecting consumers and merchants. But the idea of a platform extends to every part of the economy, every part of the value chain. It's not just about connecting producers to consumers. It's about connecting complex systems of manufacturing partners together. It's about connecting stakeholders across multiple industries to come together and solve a customer pain point. And so the value of a platform really comes through because of the connectivity that's been forced upon the world by the internet, and platforms help to create value and help firms to capture value in this connected world.
Right. A lot of people, whether I'm helping small companies launch their first app or their platform, or a huge multinational kind of figure out what they used to call their website. It's like everyone took over after Amazon, starting with Walmart, quite frankly, and now almost everyone, making exchanges and marketplaces, as we like to call them. It's like, the exchanges of business products. It's almost like we've gone back to the old century where it was like bartering was the thing to do, and technology has enabled it. But so I know you're talking a little bit about that, but it's deeper than that, isn't it? It's not just the exchanging and marketplace. It's much more complex or systemic.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that. I think what's fundamentally central to the idea of a platform is the idea of coordination. Now, a marketplace has a transaction at a center. So it's a buyer and a seller coming together, exchanging value, exchanging money. So it's a simple transaction between the two. When we look at the rest of the economy, we see that value creation requires more complex coordination. You need multiple stakeholders to come together to create value. A simple way to think about coordination is really thinking about Wikipedia. It's a very simple analogy when you think of how traditional publishing works. It's a very linear chain where you move from producing content to editorial to finally distributing it. And Wikipedia transforms that into a persistent coordination machine where creation, editing, reviews, and consumption is constantly happening in real time. And what platforms do today is they extend this power of coordination to literally every part of the economy, wherever that coordination is traditionally been broken down. Another example of coordination is really what Tesla did with the supercharger network,
Right.
because owning an electric vehicle is not just about owning the vehicle, it's also about having the driving range. And in order to have the driving range, you need to coordinate vehicle ownership with access to a charging network. And most other players in the US, in particular, could not solve that coordination problem because the electric charging operators and the electric vehicle manufacturers did not have aligned incentives. And Tesla, by controlling both, solved that coordination problem. So I believe that what's really at the heart of all of this is a lot more than just the buyer seller transactions. It's more complex coordination of investments, coordination of activities among multiple stakeholders to solve the end customer problem.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Much more systemic. And a good example is writing a book. So it's a good segue. The old publishing model versus, I don't know, Wikipedia. It's
Mhm.
like a lot of debate on that. It's like no one's happy with their Wikipedia platform because other people can opine on it. So we'll leave that one to another episode. It
Right.
could be kind of fun. But in Reshuffling, your next book, it unpacks all these AI opportunities and challenges, and and you kind of alert people into the workflows, your organizational power structures and dynamics are going to change. What does that mean, the power dynamics?
Yeah, in reshuffle, there are two key points that I'm making. The first is that when we think about AI, and reshuffle is really a book about how AI transforms the knowledge economy. When we think about AI, we often think about it in terms of a mechanism for automation, and we apply the lens that we've used to apply to traditional technologies of mechanization that have happened in the past, whether it's factory automation, or any other form of task automation that we've seen before. AI is fundamentally different in the sense that it does not simply replace or augment human effort. It does all of
Yeah.
that by first creating a representation of reality. AI works off a representation of reality. So, a better way to understand AI is to really think about Google Maps. What Google Maps does is it creates a representation of the real world, in terms of both the mapping but also the real time traffic. And
Hmm.
then it helps you make decisions, take actions on the basis of that representation. The largest systemic effect of Google Maps is that it enables you to coordinate with all other drivers on the road. So, in the past, using a paper map, you might be stuck in traffic because you did not have a way to coordinate with other drivers. But Google Maps, because it knows where every single driver is located in the city and where traffic is building up, it reroutes traffic so that those jams don't happen. And so, essentially, the real power of Google Maps is to create a representation of the world and then coordinate all stakeholders around that representation. So, my first point in Reshuffle really is that when we think about AI's impact, it's not just about changing tasks, it's about coordinating stakeholders around a new representation of how a particular system works. A very simple example of this is, think of the last time you booked a trip. If you were going on a holiday, you would start by dreaming about it on Instagram, researching on TripAdvisor, booking on Expedia, and then finally navigating with Google Maps at your destination. But if you have an AI assistant working with you, it can help you across that whole thing. It can manage your entire trip, because today your hotel provider does not work or interact with your flight, or with the local activity. All of that could be managed in one single mechanism where an assistant works on your behalf. And if that assistant could then also that AI assistant could also work with yeah, the different service providers to provide the relevant services that would help to coordinate your trip end to end as well.
Yeah, the other thing
Yeah.
about the Google Maps that I like is they bought Waze. So then, in a typical IoT definition, to use an old term, you got consumer to consumer, giving updates. You got machine to machine. You've got the perfect storm. And I don't know if they always reroute it to the right location, but it's getting better.
Yeah, there's no question that the rerouting also has unintended effects in the sense that quiet neighborhoods now become
Yeah,
part of busy highways, right?
yeah. Or they route
Uh,
you through the green option, and it's like, yeah, those neighborhoods did not want me in there. I noticed that.
and that's a good analogy for AI as well, right? Because AI is only as good as its representation of
Uh,
reality. So if its
yes.
representation is biased, it's going to end up with hallucinations and things of that sort.
Yeah, got it. What are some of your other great examples in the book?
Yeah, I mean, when we think about power structures, which was where you started this conversation, really think about what happened when barcodes first came into retail. Both Kmart and Walmart adopted barcodes, but Kmart used barcodes only to speed up, activities at the checkout counter. So
Right.
Kmart adopted barcodes the way people, companies adopt AI today, which is to speed up tasks, get productivity gains. What Walmart did was it fundamentally restructured power structures in retail. It used the barcode to create a centralized inventory management system through which suppliers could be told what needed to be stocked at what time based on how fast things were selling. Prior to that, the power of what should be stocked when was to a large extent determined by the brands and the manufacturers. But with Walmart bringing all of that data and then combining that data across its store and creating an IT system that linked its suppliers into it, it flipped that power relationship so that the suppliers now had to fit within Walmart's system. And it actually changed the nature of bargaining power because of the scale involved. Because Kmart buying and procurement decisions were made at a store-based level, but with the barcode, Walmart could make it at a centralized cross-store network-based level. And so the economy of scale that came with it were fundamentally different.
Right.
And
Right.
that's really how the power structure shifted, and that's what's happening today with AI as well.
But I
Companies
love
that
that
only use
example. Yeah, before you go on, is
right.
because it's old school. I mean, Zebra Technologies was born like a mile from my house. I know all the guys there, and Walmart not only did that, they shifted the industry and created a whole new sector, which we talk about a lot in this. Amazon probably wouldn't have grown as fast without that technology being propagated throughout the retail. And we all know what happened to Kmart and Sears. They invested.
Absolutely.
They didn't invest strategically. They were just trying to speed up the checkout process. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, and that's really what's happening with AI today as well, because AI changes things at three different levels. We keep focusing on, whether it's taking my job away or helping me get better, but really AI is changing, first of all, things at the level of the larger ecosystem, because companies are adopting AI in different ways. And so some companies will use it to reimagine how you compete in that particular industry. A really good example is TikTok, because when TikTok came on the scene, Facebook and Instagram had what was considered insurmountable network effects. They were really large, they were billion user power behemoths, and they started using AI to improve the feed. But TikTok changed the nature of social networking by using AI to bootstrap a network without requiring a user to connect with his friends. And that fundamentally changed the whole game because it allowed a new network to start from scratch and get to a billion users because it used AI to infer what users were interested in rather than requiring users to connect with their friends first. So that's my point that AI does not just change your job or your tasks, it changes the nature of competition and that changes power structures.
Yeah, I love that. The So you and I advise a lot of CEOs, and I guess I'll just ask as bluntly as I can. So, we went through this phase of, hey, you need to become a digital organization, and they spent trillions of dollars on that kind of consulting across the sectors.
Right.
Some of them are still learning it. And then AI came on the scene. Even though we've been talking about it for a decade, they were using it deep down in their research, and depending on what industry they're in. But still, especially the public companies, they're not exactly sure what to do, or they're like your Kmart analogy. They're way up here on the surface level versus automation anywhere. Companies like that are like, we can automate anything you want. Um,
Right.
so I guess the blunt question is, what is it that CEOs still aren't getting about AI and how it's going to shift this economy over the next 5-10 years?
I think the fundamental distraction that is there around AI today is that AI is seen as a way to get faster, better, cheaper at your existing game. It is not being seen as a way to reimagine your game. It's not being seen as a way to change the rules of the game for your competitors. It's not being seen as a way to fundamentally change who you are as a company, as a business entirely, right? And a simple example of this is to compare what happened with Adobe when cloud computing came in. So
No.
Adobe, right? I mean, cloud computing, much like AI today, was initially seen as a way to do things on the cheap. Your initial investments would go down, and you could access the cloud on a rentable basis. And so Adobe changed its business model, but its fundamental product and its fundamental business did not change. It was still a design software targeted at designers. Figma saw that the cloud was fundamentally a place for coordination where multiple stakeholders could connect into one single representation of the design project, and they could coordinate and collaborate around it. And that completely changed who your customer was, what your product fundamentally did, and it changed the nature of competition, so that Adobe, with its investments into a design software, could never convert and compete directly with what Figma had imagined around the cloud. And I think that's what's needed with AI today. You need to reimagine your business around what AI can do.
Yeah, Uber yourself before you get Kodak, so to speak. Some people are still getting used to Google Sheets. I'm like, stop sending me the Word document. They're like, no, no, it's finished. I'm like, it's never finished. Just let's collaborate on it. So, again, that sounds like it's 10 years old, but when you're running these massive corporations, it's hard. And you're right. The AI distraction factor is, I don't know if it's just because of the eye candy. A lot of CEOs are like, well, every employee has to use Chat GPT, so those guys are happy. 800 million users, whatever, and probably a billion already. So, but systemically down what are you telling these people to do now? Big dog CEOs.
Yeah, well, the first thing is that you need to ensure that, well, think about it at three different levels. At the first level, do not just think in terms of automation, think in terms of how can you leverage the capabilities of AI to reimagine your business. The second thing is that while you need to reimagine your business around the capabilities of AI, ensure that it's not a third party's AI technology that you are reimagining your business around to such an extent that you become entirely dependent on them. And more importantly, that you get to a place where they learn so much from your business that they can constantly move forward into your business and eat more of the pie. And so where that leaves us is that you you have to think about what's your unique edge with AI, because you will have to build your business around AI, and that core has to be uniquely yours. If it's a third party's core, you're building somebody else's kingdom. And so, really, once you've figured out what that is, you need to think about how does this change who you are as a company, because the reason that question is so important is traditionally we worked in very stable industry structures. Today, industry structure is up for grabs. Any company can work across different industry boundaries, can borrow capabilities from fundamentally different industries. And now that knowledge is becoming modular and can be borrowed and rented through AI models, much like cloud computing allowed borrowing and renting of compute, knowledge from one industry can move into another industry very easily. And so your playing field is no longer determined by what your people knew in the past and where you had built your IP in the past. It's completely up for grabs. So you really need to think through what that means for your business and reimagine your business around that.
And can the book help people kind of guide themselves through that, or is it give them the actual tips and tools that they need?
I believe so. The book is actually structured in a way where we start by, where readers start by understanding what affects AI, what effects play out because of AI at the level of the competitive ecosystem, at the level of hence then the organizational system, and then at the level of jobs, and how
Right.
these effects interact with each other. And then talks about what are the various ways in which you can think about strategy now that you understand this playing at, these effects playing out at all these three levels.
You've seen a lot of interesting turnarounds. I call them reboots, of course, because they can be positive or negative. In your day,
Mhm.
what have been some of the what's the biggest challenging one you had that maybe didn't have a great ending either? But when you walk into a lot of these situations, they're not always pretty. They're beyond the
Right.
mess, and that's when they call us, right? But yeah, what's been your experience there? Are you seeing more of that with AI?
Um, I think I've seen a fair share of that with digital for sure. And I think one of the most uh, common set of issues that I saw was that, especially think of the financial services industry when open banking regulations were announced. A lot of banks, at least in terms of how they were pursuing innovation, tried to just blindly copy what fintechs and startups were doing. And what we've repeatedly seen is that it's easy for a startup to unbundle one specific function of an industry and overfund it and try to change the economics of that one function. But that does not necessarily mean that you will actually create a fundamentally new business model around it. In fact, the few startups that ended up creating a viable financial fintech business model are the ones who then moved from that starting point to rebundle and create a larger ecosystem, whether it's Square, whether it's Stripe, whether it's Plate. So one of the most common things that I've seen from a business model understanding perspective is this overemphasis on how can we as a large company unbundle and disrupt. That works when you're $100 million funded small company with a lot with an all or nothing attitude. But for a large company, publicly traded, working on a quarter by quarter basis, the incentives don't line up for you to unbundle. So you really need to think about how do you get your business model aligned with the investment framework and with the risk appetite that your company had. And I think that misalignment creates a lot of issues when you blindly try to copy what shiny startups are doing.
Yeah, and some people talk about, we talk a lot about build, buy, borrow on this program. Who should you partner with? Who should you acquire? So financial services is great. And we've had most of those guys on the program, especially the ones nibbling around the edge. And lo and behold, they get acquired sometime. And they're literally just doing one tiny
Yeah,
sector, like lending was a big one. We've had a couple of those on. So maybe it's just part of the evolution ecosystem and definitely the role of the chief innovation officer. Do you remember that era has become more real? I've noticed with AI in terms of what they can do. It's put more pressure on people to say it's enough talk. It's time to do something. Picking the right vendors, picking the right fights, and let's go to war because
that's right.
we're competing with the little guys and the big ones as well. What's your biggest takeaway
Mhm.
from the book for people?
I think the biggest takeaway is really that you need to you need to stop thinking about AI as a cost cutting mechanism, as a productivity gains mechanism. I think both of those things, even if they play out, they don't really give you sustainable advantage. You need to think about the larger system within which your business operates. And you really need to, much like TikTok reimagined what social networking could be, and Figma reimagined what design needed. You need to think about your customer problems and how can AI help you restructure the way the customer's problems are being solved, because there are clearly inefficiencies in how customer problems are being solved today because of the limitations of today's capabilities. So with AI coming in, does that allow you to fundamentally change the way the customer's problem is solved? And in a way, that's what, for example, TikTok did for a new creator. You did not need to have millions of followers in order to get your video seen, which was the problem with traditional social networks.
Right.
So think about what constraints are holding your innovation in your industry back, and can AI help you unlock that?
Yeah, change the algorithm metaphorically.
Mhm.
The other thing you mention is that AI kind of enables coordination without consensus. What does
That's
that
right.
mean?
Yeah. So the key idea over there is that when we think about the importance of coordination, that multiple companies need to work together in order to create value. Today, the way we achieve that coordination is either bilaterally through contracting, or we create some form of multilateral coordination through, say, agreeing on standards or sharing data in an industry as an industry level resource. So we coordinate primarily by getting everyone to agree that this coordination needs to happen. But if we go back to the example that I talked about for the travel industry, right? When you're booking a trip, you're booking flights from one person, you're booking your hotels, your activities from other places, you're looking at reviews in a third place. If you want a seamless trip, that coordination would have needed all these different players, both the tech tool providers as well as the service providers, the flights and the hotels, etc., to work together on common standards and common data formats. Today, with AI, there's a possibility for you as a user to have a single AI assistant where you can throw in your desires and emails and PDFs of tickets and bookings, and have this one AI assistant work on your behalf to coordinate the entire thing, find gaps, and then negotiate with individual players to fill those gaps. And that's the idea of coordination without consensus, in the sense that all the other players don't have to agree on a common language before that coordination can be achieved, as long as AI is provided with sufficient inputs, even unstructured inputs, from which it can derive structure. So,
Yep.
really, this idea of converting unstructured information to a structured coordination mechanism is where that coordination without consensus comes in.
And I think you've hit on something that's key. Those of you that want me to put it in a different view, it's like I'm holding up my phone. We're quickly, hopefully, going to end this era. Look at all these apps on my phone. It's absurd, and that's probably a small amount. It's like 100. That era should be ending under AI. There should just do things for me. We're also living under the pull down menu era. I ran one of the first online games companies. We sold to AOL. It was illegal to go on the internet back then. You had to have a private walled network, but everything around Windows 95 back then was built on these pull down menus and all this structured, even web browsers. It's like, what's the future going to look like? I hope it's not that, because I'm tired of it.
well, well, the interesting thing is that the future is essentially created with design and architectural choices that we are making today, right? And there are a few different types of design and
And
architectural
often
choices
often
that are
based on
particularly
it's often based on where we came from, the newspaper, the television. Yeah, exactly.
That's that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And very often, there are fundamental design choices that lead to second order effects, which then create the future that we're talking about. So one of those design choices is really what's the representation of reality that the AI systems that we're going to be building are going
Yeah.
to be working with. To what extent is that really the reality that we want to be represented over there? Because there's already a lot of inequality and bias in our existing data sets and information. So do we want all of that to get in over there? Um, that's one piece. The second piece is, who are these systems working on behalf of? Because over the last 15 years in particular, we were promised an internet of people, and we instead got an internet of platforms where people had to just give up their data
Yeah.
and do the platform's bidding. So is AI going to strengthen that, or is it going to bring power back to the people? I mean, these are the issues we need
I've
to
written a
think through
couple
as
articles
we
about
design.
that. Yeah, we're still in the oligopoly era.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think about that? Is that going to go away? It
Yeah,
always seems to reconsolidate. The Web3 thing never quite got there.
not at all. I mean, the Web3 thing. I mean, for apart from the obvious hype, until you actually have a secure way to move data and rights back to the user, you're not really going away from that issue. I think the incentives today, the structures today, and even if you look at the political environment today, all of that points to further consolidation. I would hope that it doesn't end up that way, and AI provides the opportunities to give power back to the user and power back to the small business. But
Yeah.
a lot of the evidence doesn't point that way.
Me too. We've talked a lot about the leaders, the big dogs, the CEOs. What about the mid-level, entry-level people that are listening in and says, okay, well, what do I need to do? I don't really know AI. I pretend I do at cocktail parties. What do I do to keep my job or at least maybe do better what I'm doing? And what should I be doing actually to prepare myself for the next cool job? I don't even
Yeah,
know. I
I
don't even
think
know if
there
job's the right word, but you know what I mean.
exactly right. I mean, you started with this point about the obscenely long LinkedIn profile, and I've got I've got some heat for that.
You win.
But I think we're kind of getting to that world where the portfolio life and um, the fragmented job or the fragmented work is going to be um, a reality, and identity is not going to be associated with the job as much as your own ability to stitch those fragments together and create your own identity around them. So
Uh,
you really need to think about, what do you stand for, what is unique about you, not in terms of a skill, but what exactly do you uh, play with, what do you stand for. And I think we're also progressively getting into a world of easy answers. If you look at chat gpt, yes, it's great. It makes you feel like you have a superpower, but it's really a tool to get a lot of easy answers. And when answers become easy and cheap, asking the right questions makes all the difference. And that's partly for two reasons, because
hmm.
when answers are cheap, and you ask the wrong questions, you end up down the wrong rabbit hole, and that creates a huge opportunity cost of pursuing the wrong thing. So really having the right lens in terms of what matters, what are the right questions to ask, and then once those answers come out, what should be elevated, how do you create narrative energy around it, how do you then force action around those answers. I think those are the things that matter. So the traditional bottlenecks of generating answers and generating insight has gone away, but asking the right questions and elevating the right responses, I think that's where power will sit in for individuals, all of us actually.
Yeah, well said. Sangeet, really wanted to thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. I bet you've got some personal reboot stories. I know you've personally rebooted yourself many times, but what's been your biggest challenge you've overcome over the years?
Well, I mean, I've rebooted several times in the course of my career as well. I'll move when I moved from a stable job to starting my own research and then consulting, and writing the books initially. But the current book Reshuffle has also kind of come out of a rebooting phase, where
Uh,
I just felt that there was way too much hand waving, too much zombie nodding around how people were thinking about some of these issues. And it's not just about AI. The problem is, and there was a LinkedIn post by somebody today, so I won't take credit for this, but the problem is somebody said that uh, the loudest voices, which end up creating hype, are not necessarily the deepest thinkers, because the loudest voices keep jumping to the latest tech and then they keep pumping that tech every time. The deepest thinkers sit back and see, well, what's not changing and what's not going to change for the next 10 years. And I felt that that was missing in the conversation. And so I wanted to, in a way, you asked about rebooting my life, but it was more of, if you have to enter a crowded conversation, how do you stand out from that? And I just want to take that uh, particular stance on this, because with all the noise about AI, it's tempting to just join the bandwagon and then shout from the rooftops. But I wanted to kind of take a different stance in terms of what are the few things that will not change, even as the pace of technological change keeps accelerating. And that's what really got me in this direction.
yeah, great story. Thanks, Sangeet.
Thank you, Dean. It's been a pleasure.
Got it. You've been listening to Sangeet Choudary on the Reboot Chronicles. This is Dean Tobias. Please share, like, subscribe, listen wherever you get your podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com.